Good afternoon, colleagues. Welcome back. So, our previous session before lunch was interrupted, and there was still a number of cities who wanted to make a contribution. So we're going to finish off that session as quickly as we can, and then move on to our next session of the day. But we obviously want to give those cities the opportunity to make their contributions. If any of them haven't been able to make it back to the room, we will get a copy of their contributions and make sure that they are put into the record and into the discussion that we've had today. So I will start with Tashkent. Are Tashkent back here? Not yet. Okay, we'll give them a minute. I think that Skopje are not back either. Are Mannheim here? Mannheim, are we here? Thank you. And sorry, my apologies for putting you on the spot, but Mannheim, the floor is yours. Thank you.
I was not prepared, but nevertheless, It works? Yes. Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah, first of all, thanks for organizing the convention and giving us the opportunity to work together. For the gender equality, we are committed in Mannheim to implementing the European Charter for Gender Equality at local level and so on, like all the other cities, and we have an equal opportunity officer and so on. There's one aspect which is, I think, in the moment very important for us. It's to show how we can organize sustainable growth by helping young female entrepreneurs to start up a business. And therefore, we started, a recent study showed that only 24% of all deep tech startups have one or more female founder. And women-led startups only receive 15% of seed funding. So we tried to fight against this a little bit and say to use and to develop the potential of female founders, that we establish a startup center for female entrepreneurs, in addition to providing office space to women-led companies. And we also offer mentorship, workshops, networking opportunities, and other programming. So I'm convinced that our local economy and society are stronger because of the work that we do to support women entrepreneurs. This is only one aspect of our equality policy, but nevertheless, in these times where we also fight for more effectiveness, for economic strength and growth, I think it is an aspect which is really worth to discuss. Thanks.
Thank you. That was really interesting, and I'm doing something very similar in my own city, so I'd be very interested to catch up with you on that. But just now, I will hand over to Nairobi. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Njoroge Mushiri. I'm the Deputy Governor of Nairobi City County. I just wanted to make a couple of points very briefly about the gender equality rule. One of the things that we have done in Nairobi and in Kenya is that we have what we call a two-thirds gender rule, in that in any appointment, in any election, we should, as much as possible, attempt to get two-thirds of one gender and one-third of the other. That is by law. So we have that in Parliament, we have that in the assemblies, we have that in the government appointments, and that helps equalize or give opportunities to the gender, as in which case maybe look a bit oppressed. In other things like sports, we have allowed a lot of ladies to excel. In fact, in the recent Tokyo Games, 6 of our ladies brought back gold. Only one man brought back gold. It just tells you the amount of support that we have for these people. So we believe very much in this gender equality, and we're driving it forward both within the government as well as socially and in other undertakings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor. That was for that contribution. And next we have Adu City. Are they here? Thank you. Sorry, I didn't see you over at the side there. The floor is yours.
Thank you, ma'am. First of all, I'm the mayor of Adu City. I'm from Maldives. My city is located at the very southern side of Maldives. Maldives is a small nation with only 500,000 of population, and my city has got around 35,000 people in the whole city. And we have been in the process of decentralization from very recently, only 15 years. And within that, there are a lot of changes which has been brought to the legislation on decentralization. And one of the most important crucial change that was brought was that having a quota to women in the local councils. With the 8th Amendment to the Decentralization Act of Maldives, introduced a temporary special measures ensuring the participation of women in local governance. This guarantees 33% reserved seats for women in the local councils and opportunity to partake the decisions making in the local governance level. As a result, 389 women were elected among the total of 981 council seats. However, women's presence in the council does not guarantee possession of influence. Women, particularly those with other intersections, identifies a vulnerability, such as persons with disabilities, have faced long-standing systematic social and cultural barriers that we have limited their participation in the political arena. Stemming from the understanding that the gender is a construct that is rooted in social relations and power differentials. This assessment, commissioned by the local government authority, LGA, and the UNDP Maldives, seeks to understand the impact of 33% quota on the Maldives community, its effectiveness in ensuring women's meaningful participation and influence in decision making, and formulate a recommendation to build a conducive environment that complements the legislative change and contribute to the island development. With that, I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can I just say it's been very encouraging and inspiring to hear so many male leaders committing to feminist action. Those of us who are women leaders will be watching you to make sure that you stick to your commitments. We have a couple more cities who have indicated, and then, colleagues, we will need to wrap up this session and move on to our next one. But we have, and obviously our colleague from the ESCWA, who is going to wind up for us and summarise for us. But I'm going to go to Piraeus.
I'm honoured to be here today. Our municipality, the municipality of Piraeus, has planned and implements a concrete and comprehensive equality plan rooted in the values of the European Charter for Equality of Women and Men in Local Life. As a living commitment to action, there are strategic programs and tools to prevent gender-based violence and support survivors, promote women access to quality jobs and leadership roles, offer educational campaigns to combat stereotypes from an early age, and ensure that all municipal services integrate a gender-sensitive approach. As a woman myself, I can assure you that when women and girls are empowered, entire communities benefit, and when they are held back, we all are. We need a more inclusive and equal society for all generations and all communities. We need to share our best practices, ideas and solutions, and to make our cities light up the torch of inclusion, safety, dignity and opportunity for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that contribution. And our final contribution in this session will be from the Mayor of Ramallah. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. We're really honored to be here and to have this room to just shed light on how a city under occupation functions with regards to gender equality. Some little figures say that every child who was killed in Gaza had his mom next to him. So from every 10, we have no less than 6 between children and women. That's how much women are precious in Palestine. And therefore, gender equality for us is a matter of destiny. Allow me first to say that we start from grassroots, we start from schools. It starts from junior mayor in schools. In my city, the junior mayor is a she. It has been a she since 2008 until the very today in normal elections. This is how women start to engage within a local authority and how it functions. Of course, we take it up today. We have innovation hubs. We have one innovation hub run by the municipality. 80% of the entrepreneurs there are women. 60% of my team are women. 30% of the council members are women. And 80% of the department heads in Ramallah municipality are women. It's a city practically run by women. And if I say gender equality, I say that we are honored to be focused on that women's role in raising people with a culture to live for Palestine and not to die for Palestine is being cooked and established in Ramallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that contribution. And I think this is perhaps the opportunity to say that we want to express our solidarity with the people of Gaza and with all the victims of this conflict, and to recall that the Secretary-General has strongly condemned the horrific large-scale terror attack of Hamas on the 7th of October, but has also repeatedly called for an immediate and permanent ceasefire, the unconditional release of all hostages and full, safe and unfettered humanitarian access across Gaza. With that, that brings the contributions of our mayors for this session to a close. Thank you very much, all of you. And I will hand over to my co-moderator, Mr. Rahani.
Thank you. We greatly appreciate the insightful interventions shared by our mayors present today. To close this discussion, we are delighted to invite Mrs. Sukaina Al-Nasrawi for Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, ESQA, to provide brief concluding reflections. Please.
Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, partners and participants, Assalamu alaikum. Of course, representing the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, UNESCO, I'd like basically to mention that it's a privilege to join forces with UNECE, the regional commissions, the Global Cities Hub, and valued partners in organizing this super important forum. And I'm equally honored to close this plenary session on gender equality, which is about a theme that lies at the very heart of urban development and sustainable development. So thank you for the chair and the co-chairs and all of you who contributed to this discussion today, and of course to the interpreters who enabled this diverse discussion. So the interventions we've heard today were not abstract, right? They were rooted in both the evidence and lived experience. And they pointed, in my point of view, to where action is needed most. We were reminded that gender equality is still not achieved. Gender gaps persist across education, leadership and governance, economic participation, access to technology, and health and safety, among others. These gender gaps are not inevitable. We can make these changes or reforms through the policies we design, the budgets we allocate, and the multiple voices we include. So it's really time to act with the recognition that the policy not only shapes outcomes, but also holds the power to transform them for the better. So municipal and regional governments, being closest to women and men's daily life, are especially well positioned to drive these critical changes. And evidence shows, and we've heard different interventions highlighting that, evidence shows that cities implementing inclusive urban policies can increase women's mobility, improve their access to employment opportunities, reduce the exposure to gender-based violence. As we look forward, advancing gender equality, several priorities from the interventions today emerged from our exchanges. I will mention only 4 because of the lack of time. But first, it is really important to reaffirm the central role of cities and regions in advancing gender equality. Local governments can be catalysts for inclusive cities that tackle discrimination and violence against women and girls through coordinated efforts between public authorities, the civil society, and community actors, starting right at the local level. So that's first. The second, we must really support women's participation and leadership across political, economic, and public life. We just had a session on women in mayor, and also we've discussed gender equality, and different examples were mentioned. It is important to note that targeted policies at the regional and local levels can help ensure women's voices are heard where decisions are made. So evidence shows that increasing women's participation in local councils can improve the allocation of public resources to social services by up to 25%. So we really need to focus on that. Third, we must plan. We must plan and design urban spaces that are safe, accessible, and inclusive for everyone. And we've heard different examples focusing on violence against women and girls. So from safer public transport to inclusive housing and public spaces, urban design really shapes daily experience and can either reinforce or dismantle inequality. Just a quick statistics, globally, over 80% of women report experiencing harassment in public spaces, emphasizing the urgent need for inclusive planning. So let's really act on this now. Fourth, we must advance gender equality in the workplace and in the economy. And we've just heard an intervention on supporting entrepreneurs and women economic participation. So this means we really need to promote equal pay, supporting women's access to finance and entrepreneurship, closing persistent gender gaps in male-dominated sectors, and recognizing the value of care and domestic work. So these priorities really reflect areas where many of you are already innovating and driving actually innovation at the local level. They also align closely with global and regional development agendas. So the discussions I would say that we held today are meant to guide our collective action. They're also meant to feed directly into the outcome document of this forum. So as I close, allow me to underscore a simple truth. And the simple truth is that gender equality is not only a moral imperative, but also is a practical necessity for building resilient, sustainable, and inclusive cities. When we invest in inclusive decision-making, women's economic empowerment, and in safe and accessible public spaces and robust care systems, we invest in the future of our communities. Let us have this session basically a stop to be determined to make gender equality a priority in every policy we enact and in every corner of our cities. And thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sukaina. This concludes our discussion as the G5. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. So that's the end of this session. I just want to briefly say, before I hand over to my colleague, the Mayor of Heidelberg, who is going to moderate the next session, that for those of you who weren't able to make the Women and Mayor session side event that we had over the lunch break, which is obviously directly linked to the discussion that we've just had, to keep the momentum going from that discussion, it's been agreed that there will be a Women Mayors Declaration drafted today, ready for every woman mayor and deputy mayor who's here today to sign up to tomorrow. So we will we'll give you some more information about you being able to sign that tomorrow morning once the Secretariat have done the work on that. But thank you very much everyone who's contributed to this event, and I'm happy to hand over to my colleague.
Okay, so we're heading to the next session. First of all, I really have to say what Susan already mentioned was a wonderful session before. We also signed as a city of Heidelberg, and I'm Eckert. Würzner, the last name is very complicated, so maybe you stay on Eckert, from the city of Heidelberg, which is a wonderful city in Germany, a knowledge-based city, and that was the reason why I signed 18 years ago one of my first actions as the mayor, the EU Charter for Women's Rights. And maybe Benjamin Barber, anybody who knows him, maybe raise your hand. Benjamin Barber is a well-known person. He already passed away. He wrote a wonderful book about If Mayors Rules the World. Maybe we re-sign it a little bit, If Lady Mayors and Mayors Rules the World. But back to our session, we wanted to talk about SDG 8 for the decent work and economic growth. And I was very pleased to share this session together with my colleague from Nairobi, with Njoroge Mushiri. Wonderful that we are sharing this session, and I would like to hand over you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Eckert. We agreed that I don't try to read the second name because it's difficult for me to pronounce it. But I'm happy to be here today co-moderating this very important session, and I should acknowledge right from the beginning that it's a very good meeting that we've had. We've had very, very constructive contribution from the various parties this morning, and I know we'll continue to get that going forward. The session that we are getting on is going to focus on decent work and economic growth, sustainable development, SDG 8. And decent work opportunities and economic growth are vital to building inclusive, resilient, and sustainable cities. Mayors and governors are the center of creating such environments. And they have the responsibility to attract investment, to create and generate employment, and support local entrepreneurship. But as we had earlier on this morning, that we must be able to also create livable spaces, places where there is clean air, spaces that are clean in themselves, no garbage, no pollution, and spaces that are safe for the residents. So as we start this program, I would then want to introduce the topic and to call in Mr. Jean-Francois Klein, Employment Policy Advisor at the ILO, to provide us with an overview on this matter. So, Ms. Klein.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you all. Good afternoon, dear mayors and dear participants. It's a pleasure to be here with you today for a very, I would say, substantial topic around decent work, job creation, economic growth. And I think this is a perfect, link to just the previous discussions we had on gender equality, as already many of you have highlighted, the importance of job creation and what can be done at a local level to do so. I have a couple of slides. I wanted to basically give you the big picture of what has been discussed this year at the High-Level Policy Forum in New York, which has reviewed the SDG 8 among other SDGs. We have the ILO has led this work together with UN DESA. We had a series of expert group meetings to really review, the status of latest indicators. And today I really want to just to give you the gist of the discussion, what is at stake, but also, I guess, more importantly, what also can be done at a municipal and local level in order to pursue this agenda, and this is very much the topic of the day. So just to, as you know, SDG 8 is about promoting inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. This notion of decent work is really, of course, the core of the issue. So what does decent work mean? So decent work is work that is productive and delivers a fair income. So this notion of productivity and income is extremely important, this economic dimension. It is work that provides security in the workplace and social protection for families. It is work that offers better prospects for social integration, freedom for people to express their concerns, and equality of opportunity and treatment for all women and men. So as you can see, this is a very big agenda, a very important aspiration, but this is really, as the ILO, what we are also trying to promote and support our tripartite partners to do so. As you may know, the International Labour Organization is the only tripartite agency of the United Nations system, so where we have government, employers organization, and workers organization part of our governing body. So to come back to SDG 8, SDG 8 is also multidimensional as it incorporates economic, social, and environmental dimensions of the sustainable development. But perhaps more importantly, in the current context, what is at stake is really how to bring economic growth on the one side, employment and rights together. This nexus between economic growth, jobs, and rights is really what matters right now, and we will, of course, delve into also what can be done at local level. Next slide. So where do we stand with SDG 8, 6 years after the 2019 review? So like for many SDGs, the progress has been uneven and unfortunately insufficient. And there are indeed significant gaps persisting. So on the one hand of the chart, what we have tried to do is to highlight, so these are not all the targets, but what we believe are some of the most important targets and that signal where we stand. On the left side, you have basically the economic dimensions of SDG 8, around GDP per capita, labor productivity, and employment, but also targets that belong to other SDGs, because that was very much the topic of this year's HLPF in New York. What are the linkages with other SDGs? So, for instance, around industrialization and investment in research and development, which is, of course, extremely important for productivity gains, but also around infrastructure, for instance, when it comes to electricity. And then on the right side, you have what we call the social inclusion and more social and decent work dimensions around working poverty, around informality, around child labor, etc. So, I mean, what obviously initially, strikes out is that we are a little bit better off on the economic side, even though with major also concerns. But on the social aspect, this is really where we need to perhaps to ring the bell. So someone who would zoom in on certain of these targets, or SDG targets, without looking at the big picture, perhaps we would find reasons to be optimistic. So unemployment is at its lowest in historic terms, from now 5%. The working poverty has declined globally to 6.9% in 2024. But of course, there are some still major concerns remaining. And let me highlight a few. First, the employment challenges remain extremely severe for women and youth, and I think that has been also highlighted in the previous discussion. They continue to face higher unemployment rates, and labor force participation rates continue also to be low. Now, the share of youth not in employment, education or training, so the famous NEET rate, is also still high, even though it has declined, but it's still high, especially when you look at regional figures, which is still extremely high. Now, a very important aspect, and again, where a municipality and local actors can do much, is around informality. So 58% of the world employed population is in informal employment, with an average rate of 89% in least developed countries. So informality is really an extremely important compounding factors, which of course also impact issues around rights, around inequality, around voices, etc., etc. Now, the labor income share in GDP has also started to decline again, putting upward pressure on income inequality and delinking economic growth from rising standards of living for many workers. And this is also a very worrying trend. The global gender pay gap remains above 20%, and the projection says that full parity will only be reached in 55 years, which is extremely impressive. And then, despite progress on working poverty, still nearly 244 million workers still live in extreme poverty. And last point on productivity growth, there's been some slight improvement, but they remain, below pre-pandemic trends. And of course, here we have major differences when it comes to large enterprise, compared to small and medium enterprises who much less, benefit from, for instance, the progress of technology. So to all these, I would say, relatively grim indicators and trends, there is an additional trend which is extremely worrying, is what we call the certain erosion of workers' rights. For instance, the global average compliance with fundamental principles and rights at work has declined by 7%. So when we mean fundamental principle, this is also about freedom of association, collective bargaining. So that is currently eroding, and then on top of that, you can add some again declining trend in terms of, or actually increasing trend in terms of child labor and forced labor. So overall, the picture is not encouraging. But really, the key message here is that the various positive achievements that have been somehow met at economic level when it comes, for instance, to GDP growth, should not undermine the issues around rights, around voice, and around social dialogue. And again, this is a very important agenda that we believe can be very well tackled also at a local level. So what are the hindering processes? Again, the first important issue is around the fiscal constraints. So developing countries face a 982 billion fiscal stimulus gap, limiting investments, obviously, in employment and social protection. So, of course, this is for the big macro picture. And, of course, the debt burden and low-income countries spend up to 14% of domestic revenues on interest payment, compared to 3.5% in developed economies. Now, we've heard, of course, a lot about the opportunities in certain sectors, the care, the digital, the green economies. But what we also observe from the ILO perspective is that these opportunities are not sufficiently harnessed, often due to a lack of proper and effective employment and social protection policies, which could put different actors and policy measures at the right place. And then last point on digitalization and AI. Of course, these are reshaping labor markets, but as you know very well, governance frameworks lag behind, leaving platform workers and other vulnerable also people behind. To that, you can add also some of the gender barriers when it comes to women and the impact of AI, for instance, on certain occupations which are owned by women. Now, what are some of the blind spots? So, as I highlighted before, erosion of labor rights, economic pressures coupled with rising political tensions. We've mentioned the violation of freedom of association. And collective bargaining, these violations are rising, especially in fragile context. The issue of precarious employment, gig work, 0 hours contracts, part-time jobs are proliferating, reducing job quality and economic security, issues around climate changes, for instance. And then, of course, the need for action on both labor protection and social protection. Labor protection around wages, around occupational safety and health, around income and voices. I'm going to wrap up, not worry. Okay, possible action point for acceleration. We need to better integrate macroeconomic policies and employment into macroeconomic policies, looking at fiscal issues and opportunities. Perhaps that's not so much relevant for I would say at local level, but when it comes, for instance, to sectoral policies and economic diversification, we believe this is where local government by nature can support through skill systems, through enterprise support, digital inclusion, and provision of land, for instance. So I think this is an area where there is a lot to be done on municipal level. Investing in demand-driven skills development, social protection to address structural inequalities, and obviously reinvesting and generating revenues, of course, through formalization. Very last point, the issue of social dialogue and labor market institution is extremely important and again can be tackled at local level. Just to highlight a couple of the HLPF 2025 ministerial declaration which speaks about the role of local government, but of course much more needs to be done. And just to also publicize a little bit the excellent work which has been done by the task force on local and regional government, which indeed has come up with a full list of strategies and actions that can be done by local communities, by municipalities in relation to supporting this agenda at local level. And as you can see, very much reflect some of the aspects I have just talked about. And if you want, obviously, to have, I would say, just 2 reading, going back or for tonight, you can look at of course, the HLPF thematic review, which, explain everything I've just said. It's a relatively crisp note. And then a very interesting also publication by the ILO on the role of collective capabilities and societal learning when it comes to SDG 8 and the role of local government. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jean-François. I don't know what I have to say to bring you up now after such a report, and maybe you have to be careful to read the report after such not good news. And as we all noticed, there is a big movement also in countries which were suffering from growth over the last decades, where you have a huge movement to autocracy, which is really heavily because of the people are not believing anymore that there will be growth, and then they decided to go not to democratic positions, to other positions politically, which is a very big topic at the moment in Europe, in America, and many other countries. But I don't want to go into the discussion in detail. We have some questions above. Can you just point them? I don't want to read them through, but as we have done this in the past, your question can concentrate on economic growth, especially in your city, in your local government structure. I think that would be very important, and to the other questions. And I don't want to stop the discussion now because we are far ahead over time. I wanted to open the floor now for the debate. Any questions, please? Bursa, you will start? Please, the floor is yours.
Sabah olduğu gibi. Lütfen önce isminizi ve görevinizi belirterek başlayın. Gene isim kartınızı kaldırarak konuşmaya başlayabilirsiniz. Lütfen öncelikle kendinizi tanıtın. Kimin konuştuğunu bu şekilde anlamış olacağız.
Of Arezzo, 100,000 inhabitant city in Tuscany. I make a short premise. The Arezzo economy used to be related and is still related mainly on gold manufacturing. So it's what we should say a rich city. Actually, following the crisis of 2008, the bank system wasn't able to support as much that kind of economy. So 10 years ago, we decided to do something different, and I said, I want to give a second engine to the economy of my town. So we thought to develop something that was never developed before in my town, that was tourism heated by culture. And the results were very amazing, because the unemployment, especially in the young sector, that was raising about 8%, about 13% at that time, I'm talking about the 2014, 2015, is nowadays lower than 8%. And strange enough, I would say, in that sector, the young people that are working on tourism and mainly on culture are mainly ladies, women. So we actually achieved a good result. Not as big numbers, because tourism and culture can take about 8, 9%, maybe 10% of the full economy of the town, since of this very rich and unstable system of gold manufacturing. But actually, the sum of the two are making a very equilibrated, sustainable system of growth that takes into account and involves young people. So we would like to keep this direction to make the growth of the city in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have the next city is Cipher, if I read it correct, and then San Mateo, Atenco will follow, and Novo Mesto, in that order.
Bonjour.
Good afternoon. I am the mayor of Cipher in Slovakia. I'd like to underscore the significance of a very specific tool for supporting decent work, namely the social economy, which has been mentioned. It was mentioned in the presentation. The the social economy is an economic sector that is supported by the state, and social businesses benefit from state support in financial terms or in terms of tax incentives. In exchange, these enterprises, be they public or private, have to ensure the employment of certain vulnerable persons. This system exists in Slovakia and in my town. We have a company whose annual turnover is of 2 to 3 million per year, and around 30 of our staff are considered to be vulnerable. So they are older persons, aged between 50 and 60, or they're young persons, or persons who face difficulties, such as people who struggled with alcohol addiction in the past, and so on. And it's working very well with the support of the state. The company is functioning well on the market. And for me, this is an example of how to support decent work within a city. So I am very much in favor of this idea, and I hope it will remain in use in Slovakia, even though sometimes enterprises or entrepreneurs speak out against this kind of support. I do think it is entirely positive, and we should continue to support it.
Many thanks. Next speaker is San Mateo.
Thank you very much. San Mateo Atenco in Mexico is the homeland of shoes and shoemaking. It's a tradition which since the 19th century has been part and parcel of our collective identity. Today, more than 1,300 families in my municipality depend on the making and selling of shoes, and in every workshop you combine effort and talent. And our objective has been clear: to transform this tradition into economic development and sustainable employment and decent work for the municipality. Currently, the shoes that are produced in our town is recognized at the national and international levels, and this identity has been forged throughout generations, because not only is it an economic activity, it is also a symbol of culture, tradition, and communal resilience. In our municipality, there are two dimensions that coexist: the artisanal level, and this retains a deep sense of local identity, and also the industrial level, which seeks to modernize us so that we can meet the demands and challenges of ever more competitive markets. The import into Mexico of shoes from other countries has had a major impact on this sector, which is why we have strategic measures in place, as well as sustained incentives for the quality and training and entrepreneurship in this field. For us, decent work implies productive work with a fair wage and decent health and other conditions, as well as genuine opportunities for professional development. We promote the training on design, productivity, industrial safety, e-trade and export. And we have shown that change begins at the local level. But in order to really bring it about, we need cooperation and support. So I would like to call on all local governments to support us, to provide technical assistance in terms of productivity, labour certification and traceability along value chains, as well as to provide blended financing for the productive modernisation and formalisation of work in micro and small companies, as well as fostering employment with decent employment standards and supporting social innovation and entrepreneur projects that are led by women and young persons through mentorships and responsible micro-enterprises. We believe that this would serve as the basis for building a just society. Every workshop, every pair of shoes represents the opportunity for a decent income, for security, and for a source of pride in one's work. We need to support these local enterprises that are at the front line of decent employment and the struggle for it. We need to ensure formal employment, better productivity, and more resilient and prosperous communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very insightful presentation. It's good to hear how a whole industry can shape and drive the culture and the economy of a city. And I think you present very good examples to other cities about how we can develop economic development around a specific undertaking. The next city to go is Novo Mesto.
Thank you. I am the mayor of city of Novo Mesto, Slovenia. My city, Novo Mesto, a small city, both by European and global standards. The most important current characteristic of Novo Mesto is its economic success. These are companies that are successful in the European and global markets. And for this success today, we can thank our predecessors. These were mainly individuals, visionaries, who made the right decisions about 60 years ago. But I often wonder what we need to do to make our local environment equally successful in the coming decades. We see the answer in providing human resources with appropriate knowledge and experience. The answer to the first goal, to ensure population will be at the same level or even growing, is to provide a quality working and living environment. To provide second goal, appropriate knowledge and competencies, we have begun to strengthen the research and higher education environment. And today we are on the point of establishing a new public state university, which will include 8 already operating faculties. In the coming years, we plan to double the number of students. The presence of knowledge institutions and students will change, strengthen, and rejuvenate our city. Simultaneously, with the establishment of the university, we are also implementing an extensive housing program and numerous measures in the field of sustainable policy. In this way, hand in hand, we are building a quality living and working environment and laying the foundations for the future. I sincerely believe that this is a balanced model for economic growth and decent access to suitable jobs in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your remarks. And before I hand over the floor to Tallinn, I just wanted to mention that I have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 remarks. We have to close the line now, sorry for this, because we have another speech and we have to look a little bit about the agenda. So I would like to hand over to Tallinn.
Dear colleagues, Tallinn, capital of Estonia, reaffirms its commitment to SDG 8 by building a city that offers all residents an opportunity for a better quality of life. So we believe that innovation is key to unlocking this potential. How? It's actually a very practical approach, and Heidelberg is actually part of it. But I'll tell you in very few words what we are doing. So we started offering our city as a testing playground. The program is called Test in Tallinn, and we created a framework where startups, companies, academia, and cities can pilot future-ready solutions in a real urban environment. And we are open for companies from all over the world, and we have already welcomed them from over 20 countries, so it's getting very global. And these pilots, they range from green mobility to education, digital twins, circular economy. So they are not just technological experiments, they are job creators, skill builders, and enablers of decent work. And just a few examples. We had a pilot that empowers visually impaired people to navigate the city. It allows them to feel their surroundings through touching and seeing the world that they can't see. We have had green renovation projects, we've had future skills and drone technology projects. Drone topic is a very hot one at the moment, well, in Europe definitely, but also, I believe, all over the world. So we are offering drone pilot training grounds, preparing residents for new careers in urban air mobility, safety and environmental monitoring, and that supports youth employment, vocational training, and aligning them with future labor market needs. And we know that innovation must scale faster, so that's why we do it together with other cities. We have started multiple testing together with partners like Heidelberg, like Valencia, Helsinki, Seoul. And this is actually the only way to speed up, to learn from each other and create new cities together. So in short, we are not just implementing SDG 8, we are helping cities reimagine it. To summarize, we invite all cities to solve global challenges together with us through innovation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that insightful presentation. I just want to remind mayors, please, let's confine our presentations to within 2 minutes so that we can hear as many of you as possible. So next on is Øygarden.
Thank you. Tom? Yes, probably. Here I am, Tom, from Øygarden, Norway. I'm just going to follow up on the challenge about qualified healthcare personnel, because what are we going to do about it? So to help to solve this problem, we launched a project where we hire refugees as surface staff in the healthcare sector. These roles focus on non-medical tasks, allowing trained healthcare personnel to concentrate on their core responsibilities. This approach brings at least 2 major benefits. 1, refugees get quickly integrated into workforce, gaining value, experience, and contribute to the society. It also builds them alive. 2, the pressure on healthcare system is reduced as professionals can focus on the patient care. I think as a municipality, we have a lot to win to ensure that as many people as possible are engaged in meaningful work. This project is one step in the right direction. We also have different steps connecting to youth on the same level, that we use the resources on their level instead of seeking of people we don't get anyway. Thank you.
Many thanks for your wonderful contribution. So we wanted to head over to Bursa.
Next. Thank you very much. Global economic growth continues to occur unevenly, leaving many people behind. Informal employment, youth unemployment, and the rapid pace of digital transformation are excluding vulnerable groups from the labor market. Bursa believes that inclusive growth must be redefined not just as economic expansion, but on the basis of decent work and social justice. In this context, Bursa contributed 2 concrete proposals to the Mayor's Forum Declaration. The first emphasizes strengthening vocational education, creating fair pathways from technical education to higher education, and supporting lifelong learning. The second proposes preparing for the impacts of artificial intelligence and digital transformation, encouraging cities to establish innovation hubs and develop collaborative models to promote inclusive models. These approaches are being implemented at the local level in Bursa. The Bursa Employment Office connects job seekers with suitable employment opportunities, while the City Academy provides digital and technical skills training for youth and women. Moreover, Bursa aims to leverage the experience and practical knowledge of other cities through international cooperation. By sharing knowledge with other cities and global partners, the city seeks to enhance its capacity to adapt labor market transformations and ensure that economic growth is more inclusive and sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. The next city is Nakhchivan. I hope I've said it right.
Thank you. Jabbar Musayev, Head of Nakhchivan City Executive Power. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, it's a great honor for me to take part in the Forum of Mayor and to share experience of Nakhchivan City. In Nakhchivan, people's health and well-being are among our main priorities. Today, the new master plan of Nakhchivan is being prepared by Chapman Taylor, one of the world's leading urban planning companies. This plan focuses on modern urban solutions to make our city more healthy, green, and accessible. New parks, green areas, public space, bicycles, lanes, and pedestrian roads are the part of this vision. Within the state program 2023-2027, construction of affordable housing has already started in Nakhchivan together with the State Housing Construction Agency. These projects improve access to housing for low and middle income families and at the same time create new jobs and support economic activity. According to the presidential decree, in the near future of electric bus will operate in the public transport system of Nakhchivan. 60 new buses will be purchased, charging stations and depots will be built. This step will reduce noise, improve air quality, and make our city more environmentally friendly. In 2025, a large tree planting campaign was organized in Nakhchivan. Nakhchivan has strong potential in agriculture, tourism, and small business. But one of the most important future opportunities is the Zangezur corridor. When it's opened, Nakhchivan will be directly connected to Azerbaijan and integrated into major international transport routes between Asia and Europe. This will transform our city into a logistic hub, bring new investment, create jobs, and strengthen regional cooperation. Dear colleagues, the development model of Nakhchivan is based on people-centered, socially just, and environmentally sustainable principles. Our cooperation with Chapman Taylor, affordable housing projects, electric bus, tree planting, and the new logistic opportunities of the Zangezur corridor all reflect our vision of a healthier, greener, and more prosperous city. I believe this forum is a unique platform to exchange experience and to build stronger partnerships for the future of our cities. Thank you for your attention.
Wonderful, strong engagement. We come to Keşken, Met.
So thank you. It's an honor to address you today. I'm Claudia Semerai, the mayor of the Kecskemet, Hungary. As mayors, we recognize our crucial role in shaping local economies that are sustainable, inclusive, and resilient, providing every resident with opportunities for a better quality of life. In the last decade, Kecskemet has become the European center of the automotive industry. 15,000 new workplaces have been created, and this development is still continuing. Our city has built a comprehensive ecosystem where education, industry, and community life work hand in hand. Let me share a few concrete examples. We have established a digital knowledge center where young people learn through creative pedagogy and the most modern digital tools. Here, they imagine the city of the future and present their visions directly to the city leadership. Alongside this, our dual education system, both at secondary and higher levels, links dozens of local companies with schools and universities to provide students with market-relevant skills and pathways into sustainable careers. Housing support is the main pillar. The municipality deals with 1,300 flats. Our municipality housing programs offer rental units for young graduates, new workers in shortage occupations, and for people in social need. The Hungarian government supports ownership. In recent years, the government introduced measures such as personal income tax exemption, the family housing allowance, and the newest measures is the 3% interest rates on loans to buy a property. We also focus on intergeneration cooperation. At Neumann János University, the only age-friendly university in Hungary, senior citizens attend regular courses alongside students. Meanwhile, the volunteer networks of over 100 trained grandmothers supports young families with child care. With these initiatives, Kecskemét demonstrate how local strategies can bring the principles of decent work and sustainable economic growth to life. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, thank you. The heart full. We have Nunoir and Bristol, and then we have really to head to the speaker. But very short, please. Nunoir.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. Tres cosas.
Thank you very much. Just three things. The first thing, this issue is probably what led me to take the decision to be mayor, in fact. I was president in a bank, and I realised that the principal barrier to economic development isn't the national government, but local government, where the key problems, systemic problems, develop that we need to overcome. And looking beyond really that particular story and the problems as I see it locally, the thing is that we need to generate serious international cooperation. The first barrier to this relates to the local rates of employment and the level of concern that this creates and the way this creates differences between the different labour economies and the level of formality across the world and the weak systems to protect that. Second, the capitalising on human capital and many local democracies which haven't generated the ability to do business or generate business, and this has led to breaks on permits for work and other entrepreneurial training. Thirdly, the level of corruption at the local level. This means that oftentimes big business captures the advantage in a much easier way, and they have a captured labour market. They have public tenders which are captured by them too easily. And the fourthly thing, I think countries like Chile, for example, are confronting this, and that is that in global economies, the big desire of local entrepreneurs is to develop their competitiveness in foreign markets. In Chile, for example, they're looking at Colombia and Mexico and others, but in the local markets, they don't have a soft landing program or a development program which allows entrepreneurs to develop themselves in both systems simultaneously in parallel, and no entrepreneur is just thinking about how to reach an international market. They want to reach local markets, but when they leave their local market, they don't know where to target or how to deal with the regulation in the host state. And I think these are issues which should be incorporated into our agenda.
My name is Tony Dyer. I'm the leader of Bristol. I was going to talk about the many things we're doing in Bristol, but I'm conscious of the time, so I'm going to talk much more quickly. Bristol, I know, is a lucky city in that we are one of the most wealthiest and vibrant economies in one of the wealthiest and most vibrant countries in the UK. But I grew up in a part of Bristol which is amongst the 1% most deprived in the entire United Kingdom. And the people who are my family and my friends are feeling left behind. They're feeling left behind because, as we heard from Mr. Klein, we are seeing good progress on the economy, but unsatisfactory progress on how that includes everybody else and how that provides decent work for everyone. We have heard earlier today about threats to democracy. We've also heard today about women being left out of the economy and out of politics. We cannot be successful cities if the growth of our cities does not include all of those who live in our cities. It is a threat to the continuing democracy of our word, of our countries and of our cities. And if we do not address that with matter of urgency, we will not be welcomed or thanked by the residents of our cities. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I think that concludes Mayor's and Vice Mayor's contributions. I know we could have had a lot of contributions coming on because it is clear that all of you are doing great things to create opportunities for decent work for people who live in your cities and with that economic growth. It's good that all these, in some cases, as we've had, are tied into our cultural systems, and we are able to drive a whole economy, creating hope and opportunities for all within our establishments. And therefore, I thank you very much for that. Now, to bring this all together and to bring it home, I want to call on Ms. Atkelish person. I call her Kitty. It's easier for me to give us her concluding remarks.
Thank you, Deputy Governor, for that. And Excellencies, Honorable Mayors, esteemed co-moderators, distinguished speaker, and dear colleagues, good afternoon. As we draw this session to a close, allow me to express our sincere appreciation to the co-moderators and our speaker from the International Labour Organization and all mayors for the rich and inspiring exchange we have had on economic growth and a decent job under SDG 8. As you all know, SDGs are indivisible. In that, achieving SDG 8 contributes to the achievement of multiple other goals, from ending poverty, SDG 1, and ensuring gender equality, we just discussed earlier, SDG 5, to fostering industry and innovation, SDG 9, and reducing inequalities, SDG 10. So that means it is a very critical SDG to achieve. Today's dialogue has once again shown that cities are not only the engines of national economies, but also they are front lines where inclusive and sustainable opportunities are created. The presentation from ILO reminded us of persistent structural challenges in labor and employment ecosystem. And this complements with the 2025 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals report, which provides a clear picture on the global economy, which is slowing, with the GDP per capita projected to grow by just 1.5% in 2025. In least developed countries, growth has averaged only 1.6% between 2015 and 2023. That is far below the 7% target required to reduce poverty and drive sustainable development. So rising trade tensions, weak productivity growth, and declining labor rights compliance further undermines prospects for decent work. This trend underscores the urgency of a strong investment in resilience, structural transformation, and inclusive growth. In this context, the examples shared by mayors are both timely and encouraging. So we heard about local policies and initiatives that are fostering jobs creation and innovation, whether through investment in the green and digital economy, support for small investment, small enterprises, or targeted youth employment programs. So these examples show that even amid global challenges, cities can chart their own path toward opportunities and resilience. A second area that emerged was the focus of inclusion, from women and youth to migrants and persons with disabilities. Cities are addressing barriers to employment with practical solutions. These interventions are not only about fairness. In fact, they are economic multipliers that unlock new talent and potential for growth. We also reflected on the transition from informal to formal employment that is a persistent challenge across regions. Informality actually continues to account for more than 60% of global employment, with serious implications for job quality and social protection. So again, cities are finding ways forward, simplifying business registration, expanding social protection schemes, and improving working conditions. So these measures build stronger, fairer local economies. Another insight that we have seen in today's discussion was the importance of partnerships. Advancing SDG 8 requires collaboration beyond government, bringing in entrepreneurs, workers' organizations, academia, and civil society. Cities that adopt such partnerships are seeing more innovative strategies, broader ownership, and better outcomes. At the same time, I think we must acknowledge the challenges raised. Limited financing, capacity constraints, and difficulties in monitoring progress. So these are real obstacles. Yet what we have seen today is a remarkable determination to innovate, whether through new financing instruments, city-to-city peer learning, like this ones, or stronger partnership with international actors. Excellencies, on behalf of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, together with our sister regional commissions, ESCAP, ESCOA, ECLAC, UNECE, and which is the host of this forum, and as well as the Global Cities Hub, we encourage all cities to continue documenting and sharing your experiences, because this platform helped, to share your experiences, learn from one another, and to continue this dialogue. So, because knowledge exchange is one of the most powerful tools we have to accelerate collective progress, and today's contribution add valuable lessons to the global community. So as we conclude, let us remember that promoting decent work and economic growth is not only about employment figures. It is about dignity, fairness, and resilience for every individual. It's about creating inclusive and sustainable cities where opportunities is shared and no one is left behind. So the road to 2030 is very short, and the challenges are immense. Yet the example and commitment we have heard today give reason for optimism. Cities are not waiting. Are you waiting? No. They are leading the way. Let us carry this momentum forward, strengthen our collaboration, and ensure that SDG 8 is not an aspiration, but a lived reality for all. I thank you all.
Yeah, many thanks for your wonderful speech and also for all of your comments for this session. I think it was a very good discussion. We have a lot to discuss maybe later on, but I think it was a very fruitful discussion and a very important point, because if the economic situation is not giving a perspective, lots of our programs are failing. And therefore, we have to find a way how this is more fair, more equal, and for everybody, and brings them all on board. So many thanks for the discussion. And I would give the floor now, and first of all, many thanks for your good cooperation, our wonderful sharing here. And I would give the floor now for the next session to our colleagues and friends, Gregor Macedoni as the mayor of Novo Mesto, Slovenia, and also vice chair of the UN Forum of Mayors Bureau, and Mrs. Arlene Achillas, mayor of Santa Rosa, Philippines, to guide us through the next session on climate finance mechanisms. So many thanks for your attention.
So, thank you, Eckert, for previous session. I can try also surname Würzner. Okay, I'm not sure if it's correct. So, my name is Gregor. It's easier than surname Macedoni, which is like the name of one country, but it's not connected. So, I would like to greet you all here. Because I'm proud to be part of this forum. Definitely, we are not non-operational body, but when the representatives of local governments come together, it shows really local strength and strong local power. So first, I will also greet my co-moderator, Mayor of Santa Rosa, Miss Philippines, yes, and Miss
Arcelias. All right.
Okay.
Good afternoon to everyone. I'm Mayor Arlene B. Arcelias from the city of Santa Rosa in the Philippines, and very happy and honored to be co-moderating this session on climate finance mechanisms with, of course, Mr. Gregor Macedoni. Thank you very much.
So, let's go on. We will focus in this session key theme of the forum, so climate finance mechanisms. And as you already know, we co-moderated with Mr. Arkilas. If I may say a few words about our team, the access to climate finance is critical for cities to implement adaptation and migration measures. And local governments often face challenges in mobilizing resources, yet they're on the front line of the climate crisis and essential to delivering sustainable solutions. And to frame our discussion, I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Dario Liguti, I pronounce correct, yes, okay, Director of the Sustainable Energy Division at the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, to deliver a presentation on this, our topic.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Good afternoon to all of you, distinguished delegates. And I will give a very brief presentation on some of the financing modalities that are available for cities, from the traditional ones to the more innovative ones, and then highlight as well some of the challenges that the mayor of Novo Mesto has already identified for cities to take their future in their hands. As many of you have said throughout the day, action is taking place in cities now, and the dynamic and the momentum is moving from central and national governments down to the city level increasingly. That means that as well financial flows need to increasingly go towards cities. Next slide, please. So let me set the background. The financing gap is huge. It's $4 trillion annually to reach the SDG 17, all the SDGs, by 2030. Financing gap means is the amount estimated of investments versus how much money is actually going towards the SDGs. So 4 trillion is a very substantial amount of money. It's about twice to 3 times what is actually going today in the oil and gas industry. So it's not only about diverting sources which goes into oil and gas annually investments, it's actually as well finding new money, actually mobilizing money who is sitting idle in the banks, in the pockets of consumers, everywhere. Only for energy, there is almost more than half of it is of that gap is for in the energy sector, because the energy is the driving force and the driving blood behind a lot of the SDGs. And obviously, it's a very unfair picture. Finance flows are going towards mostly certain countries, and those countries are China, Europe, North America, principally, and very little at local and regional level when compared to the needs. A lot of it stays at the central level or is managed directly by the central level, which complicates the picture. So for cities in developing countries, it's even harder than for cities in developed countries accessing that finance. So that is the climate finance challenge that is in front of us. So why cities matter actually for climate finance? Well, I'm not, surprising you if I say 80% of the economic activity takes place in cities and 70% of global CO2 emissions comes from cities. So if you want to tackle climate change, you have to tackle where it happens, which is in the cities, mostly. Cities, and I mean not only urban, I mean as well cities and industries located into cities, of course, and cities in the large sense, not just the urban infrastructure, but cities as the heartbeat of economic activity, as complex systems of where economic activity take place. Needless to say, growing population, growing urbanization, that's where the future lies. And that's where future challenges will be mostly felt in a very, very important way as well, because most of the insured property is in cities. And that's where the bulk of the estimation, not the bulk of the damages, because damages will be everywhere, but the bulk of the financial cost of those damages will be borne, simply because that's where the values of real estate are highest, and simply where most insured is places as actually in cities. The World Bank estimates between 256 billion and 120 billion only for urban infrastructure necessary for the SDG 7, which brings to the amount of money that I mentioned before. So how cities are to tackle from a finance perspective? These are the traditional ways. Next slide, please. These are the traditional ways, you know, getting your budget financed either centrally or raised locally, depending on how is your governance, how your political setup, political and administrative setup. That is the traditional way of financing projects. Increasingly, particularly big cities, they access debt capital markets internationally, either bank loans or bonds. That means that they need a rating. It's a very complex, but for large projects, for large cities, is actually something that is now a traditional way of financing, or through public-private partnerships, PPPs. Very famous in the 80s and the 90s, a bit less these days because of management issues. Increasingly, supranational funds, whether it's EU funds or international financial institutions, are looking at cities because they understand that's where investments are made and therefore flows are going there. But remember, these are mostly as co-financing opportunities. They don't finance 100% of the project. They jointly finance with some other funds. So these traditional methods might work well when are centrally, when the money is managed by the city, for small-scale projects, which the cities are plenty of it. They don't work very well for large projects. Instead, accessing the debt capital markets works better for large and medium-sized projects because that's more understandable to the investors, to the capital markets. But there are, given the size and the challenge and the necessity to access new funds, new pools of money, there are new ways that cities are testing how to access capital markets. One is creating platforms to put in contact cities with non-traditional funders of cities. And this is what we did with the Climate Champions in establishing the regional platform for climate projects, where many cities in Central Asia who don't have access to the international capital markets can access financing. That means, of course, in a certain discipline. It means that you need to structure projects correctly. Documentation is a long process, but it's a process that opens new pools of money and giving opportunities for diversification of financing to those pools of money as well. So there is both an interest from both sides in pursuing this avenue. Other areas are the risk in private. There is a general common knowledge among the finance investors that the highest credit worthiness is at national level, and nobody can go above that. In the ratings, in fact, that is a plafond. It's the maximum that you can. More and more, we see that actually private sector and cities having better ratings than the national level. And this should be like that, because depending, of course, on a host of legal issues, but there is a potential. Many cities, many private sector companies have better credit worthiness than national governments themselves. We at UNEC have as well elaborated what is called the peers methodology, which allows to not only look at financial ratings, but environmental and social support, and show how this serves SDGs and helps accessing funds that cities typically don't have access to. Original and more complex to structure, but very innovative instruments are carbon credits, payment for ecosystem services, or resilience funds, increasingly becoming important, like nature-based solutions as well. Biodiversity solutions are in nascent markets, a bit complex to access, but with lots of potential, particularly for cities where they are able to show immediate impact. Because what these investors look for is immediate impact. shows the money and the action and the result, and that is very clear. Finally, certain type of projects, and I mentioned here microgrids and energy islands simply because that's my area of knowledge, can be crowdfunded from the consumers themselves, because it's there the primary beneficiary. Of course, all of these areas have all of these tools have their complexities. You need people in cities who are able to handle the complexity of structuring these deals, or have access, have a conversation with investors which are typically fairly sophisticated in these pools of money. But this is an investment which is very worth the time and the expense from a city perspective to be able to mitigate or to partially close the financing gap that I was talking before, particularly in an environment where central flows or coming from the center, from national government coffers, will continue going down. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liguti, for your presentation. And I myself agree with your presentation. Being a mayor of a city, everything should start from the city. And it's really very expensive to fund climate change mitigation adaptation. So thank you very much. And without further ado, let us begin our discussion. When making your interventions, please consider the following questions. You will find them in the background note containing guiding questions that is available online. And I also invite the Secretariat to project the questions there. Number 1, please provide an example of a local project to adapt to or mitigate the impact of climate change for which you have managed to get international, national, or private funding. How did you go about convincing this international, financial institutions, multilateral development banks, national private actors to provide funding? Have you benefited from innovative approaches to access funding for a city-led adaptation or mitigation project? What is most crucial, in your view, to enhance the mayor's ability to finance sustainable urban projects?
As you know from previous sessions, you're now all invited to request the floor by raising your city's nameplate, and we make a list and then give you the floor. We ask all to introduce yourself with the title, the name of the city and country, and that your intervention should be within 2 minutes as limitation. And we have the first interventors. So the city of Amman, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Ziad Rihani, Deputy Mayor of Amman. I will say a few words in Arabic. I didn't have enough time to translate it to English, so pardon me.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, Amman, like all major cities, is facing increasing challenges, changing rainfalls and sudden floods, which requires funding tools that are flexible and smart solutions that can protect humans and property alike. Amman, in cooperation with its international partners, have embarked on qualitative projects to adapt with climate change, including smart management of water to face the unexpected floods sponsored by the Dutch and Japanese governments and supervised by UN Habitat. The Japanese government has enhanced social and institutional adaptation with sudden floods, which has protected the city and surrounding endangered areas through early warning systems, as well as developed draining to assess risks. Thousands of inhabitants of cities have benefited. In the same context, in cooperation with the Dutch government, it has launched a smart management project to enhance its adaptation to climate change based on natural solutions like collecting rainfall to be used subsequently in a more sustainable way in cooperation with several governments in order to enhance capacity building and technology transfer. Funding of climate is not just a financial investment, but an urban one that achieves tangible results. From our experience, we see that enhancing our city's capacity includes first technical capacity building, facilitating access to funding, and encouraging innovation on the local level, as well as municipal funds. The experience of Amman shows that investing in climate adaptation enhances sustainability and turns cities into smarter and more flexible ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that intervention, Deputy Mayor of Amman. Now we would like to call on the representative from Bristol to take the floor for your intervention.
My name is Tony Dyer from Bristol. I think cities have a key role to play in addressing climate action and ecological recovery. More than half of the world's population live in cities now, and this continues to grow. Therefore, cities are where we can have the most impact and be at the forefront of a just and inclusive transition. Cities are also uniquely placed to drive decarbonisation due to their local insight, democratic integrity and legitimacy, and proximity to communities. UK core cities, that's the 12 largest cities outside of London, are already pioneering innovative actions as part of their net zero goals. But we also need support from government and the financial community to unlock investment pipelines, because as we've heard, it can be difficult to get investment into viable projects, and that's where we need the most work and long-term support for sustainable growth and a just transition. Bristol was the European Green Capital in 2015 and was the first UK city to declare a climate emergency and then an ecological emergency. And our friends in Glasgow, as a fellow core city, also take action on climate change and hosted COP26. And both Bristol and Glasgow are part of the EU Mission City programme as climate neutral and smart cities. And we continue to work together to jointly tackle the climate emergency. One example of where Bristol has made some massive achievements is in something called City Leap. This is a €1.2 billion investment programme over 20 years, which aims to deliver 140,000 tonnes of carbon savings, deliver 182 megawatts of clean energy, and €70 million of social value, and has already generated 800 plus decent jobs in climate innovation. Thank you.
Thank you for intervention and insights. And the next is Bursa.
Distinguished mayors, we are discussing an issue which is very important. Climate change is one of the greatest global challenges directly threatening infrastructure, economy, and public health of cities. However, many urban areas face serious challenges in accessing the financial resources needed for a low-carbon transition. Bursa addresses this issue through a holistic approach, viewing climate not merely as an environmental concern, but as a core dimension of sustainable development. With this vision, the Green City Action Plan has set an ambitious goal of reducing per capita emissions by 40% by 2030. In addition, through its partnership with the UN Mission for Climate Adaptation, Bursa has gained direct access to international funding, ensuring a strong financial foundation for its projects. Under this framework, projects such as the Yenik and solid waste-to-energy plant, solar power plants, and the drip irrigation facility both reduce carbon emissions and generate tangible benefits for the local economy. The use of public-private partnership models and carbon credit mechanism in these projects creates a reliable financial framework for sustainable investments. Bursa sees climate finance not merely as a financial tool, but as the engine driving the city's economic and social transformation. Furthermore, Bursa seeks to initiate twinning and knowledge-sharing partnerships with cities that have gained experience and developed success stories in this field. Through mutual learning and joint project development, Bursa aims to achieve its low-carbon development goals more effectively and sustainability. The city's ultimate vision is to become a resilient, low-carbon and inclusive city, one where prosperity is shared by all.
For your intervention, gentleman from Bursa. Now we would like to call on the representative of Arezzo to take the floor for your intervention.
Fellow mayors, Arezzo recognizes that tackling climate change requires innovative and pooled financial resources. We firmly believe that the key to unlocking true climate resilience lies in transitioning from single project grants to programmatic, integrated financing that bundles social and environmental benefits. Our city's commitment to climate action is exemplified by our participation in the Green Me 5, co-financed by the LIFE program. This cooperative initiative focuses on implementing the Green City Accord across the vital pillars of urban environmental management, with Arezzo specifically driving pilot actions in waste management. This project demonstrates how European funding can facilitate crucial steps toward a circular economy and urban environmental quality. However, a major challenge remains: accessing large-scale, low-interest climate loans, particularly for seismic and energy retrofitting of private residential buildings. Most homeowners lack the capital to invest, and local governments often lack the financial capacity to provide large-scale subsidies. We must move beyond project-specific grants. Arezzo today makes a firm pledge to all European Union members states to promote structural funds and financial mechanisms specifically aimed to tackling climate change through the retrofitting of existing buildings, especially historical ones, to achieve nearly zero energy building standards. This systemic investment is the only way to safeguard both our cultural heritage and our citizens' well-being from the combined threats of climate disasters and energy poverty. Arezzo is ready to be a pilot city for such a mechanism, demonstrating how integrated financial can rapidly scale scale up climate actions in medium-sized, historical, significant cities. Thank you.
Thank you. Financing is a real challenge. I remember from last year when Mr. Eckert told us about the local bank owned by the city. Great answer. So the next is the representative of Hradec Králové from Czech Republic, probably. So the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Paulína Špringrova. I'm the mayor of Hradec Králové, which is a medium-sized city in the heart of Czechia, or Czech Republic, if you want. In our city, we really believe that sustainability is not a slogan. It's the way to the real modern city that we should strive for every day. That's why in recent years we have focused on energy efficiency, renewable energy and climate adaptation. And to be concrete, in this month, in the last few months, we are finalizing the implementation of an energy management system that will be certified, which allows us to monitor and reduce consumption across all municipal buildings, I mean consumption of energy. This data-based approach saves both, saves energy and saves public money. And this summer, our city council also approved establishment of the Hradec Králové Energy Community, one of the first in our country. Through this model, schools and public buildings equipped with solar panels can share electricity they produce with others. Then the result is greater energy self-sufficiency, price stability, and local resilience. We also look at climate adaptation, from water retention in the landscape to green infrastructure and circular waste management. Hradec Králové is among the national leaders in recycling, and we run 2 reuse centers for all unnecessary goods. Now we are opening the 3rd reuse center that is specialized in textile. It's a part of a system of circular economy. Then we use this money we get from these reuse centers for our environmental projects like planting trees, etc. All these initiatives are part of our Sustainable Energy and Climate Action Plan prepared under the Covenant of Mayors initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, for presenting your initiatives in adaptation and mitigation of climate change. Now, we may call on the representative of Tallinn. You may take the floor.
I'm the Deputy Mayor of the City of Tallinn, and wanted to share a story of our challenge. Tallinn has over 5,000 Soviet-era apartment buildings. They all need full renovation. And we've done a soft academy pilot that helped us to try full renovation integrated solutions on 4 buildings. We combined building upgrade with renewable energy cooling, stormwater management, and public space renewal. But this is only 4 buildings, and 5,000 is the full scope. So the main problem is really how to scale these projects. And I've heard this is quite a problem with a lot of cities. So my worry here is that we do need new financing models. What was mentioned, green bonds, PPPs, blended finance. All of that, but also stronger cooperation between the national and international partners, because we do need predictable financial flows to be able to complete all the work needed. So my question to all the colleagues here is how to get it done, because it's way too slow. And climate finance is not just about numbers, because it's really about transforming how we live, because it's real people that continue living in poor conditions every day. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are all invited to answer this question. And next on the list is city of Zaragoza. Please, the floor is yours.
On behalf of my mayor, I'd like to convey our great thanks to you and express a very warm gratitude for this initiative. I am responsible for housing in my city, and we're the fourth city in Spain. My annual budget stands at 1 billion roughly, and always resources are insufficient, of course. This is always a key challenge to make progress despite that. Now, local taxation is the third source of funding for us. The other resources come in from the state directly and other regional entities. And so it's always a great challenge to understand how we are going to be able to find solutions to local problems with local resources. The key challenge that local councils have is that being aware of local challenges such as fighting pollution, migration, we do need funding sources that come in from outside the local area as well as from inside. Otherwise, we don't manage to come up with the solutions. They become exacerbated. So the first claim I would really make is that I think today's session is extremely important because we need to garner a consensus here to ensure that funding sources in states for local government have a particular tailored budget for thematic challenges, but also challenges of another nature, of a global nature, to be dealt with. In Zaragoza, we've managed to get extraordinary funding sources through residence mechanisms. Outside of Madrid, we are the city that's been able to garner funds. We're a climate city for 2030. We've managed to get funding sources with companies who have invested in the city in energy and water and fostered a very significant ability to generate a new economy. So thanks to energy savings, for example, we've managed to convert to a source of funding, which of course flows into our budget, not only in a monetary way, but enhancing rights as well. Thank you very much, and please come to Zaragoza to see our experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zaragoza City. And now we would like to call on and take the floor for your intervention, Yokohama City.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Kentaro Kanebako from the City of Yokohama, Japan. City of Yokohama is actively engaged in sharing knowledge and best practices for building sustainable and climate-resilient urban environments. In 2027, we will co-host the 9th Asian Pacific Urban Forum in collaboration with UNESCAP, further strengthening our commitment to our international dialogue on urban sustainability. Public-private collaboration is a key pillar of our approach. One example is a Yokohama SDGs certification system, which promotes SDGs-aligned business practices. This system evaluates companies across 30 ESG indicators and provides access to support through partnerships with over 10 financial institutions. To date, more than over 800 companies and organizations have been certified. Yokohama also been selected by the OECD as model city for climate action evaluation. Under the territorial approach to climate action and resilient framework, our initiatives in the Minatomirai district are designated as a decarbonization leading area, have been recognized for their innovative public-private collaboration and diverse decarbonization models. As one of Asia's leading cities in environmental innovation, Yokohama remains committed to advancing this effort and deepening international cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. The next will be Mannheim. Please, the floor is yours.
For the model and for your presentation about new financial mechanism to finance sustainable development and especially climate issues. I don't want to add another ideas. I only think my experience was that first of all you have to develop with your stakeholders and in your city idea of a business model, how investments in climate change, in decarbonization could be a business model for the city and for the other stakeholders, for example, the industries. Therefore, we started several years ago the program of PPAs, for example, power purchase agreements. So for the first time, we realized about 600 billion euros for the companies and for the city to invest in climate change investments. So I think it could be a possibility, but we need also the legislation for that. The next idea is, for example, how can we invest in negative emissions? So there is no legislation in the moment, so we don't exactly how we should gain and how we should produce a business model for negative emissions. So I think this could be a good idea for the UN to lobby for a framework, a legal framework for negative emissions worldwide. And so it could be a chance also for other cities to start up business models for negative emissions, like the PPA model. I'm not sure, maybe you can answer to this question a little bit, and because you know you're deep in the topic. So this could be very interesting for a lot of people here in the room.
We still have enough time, so if you want to answer.
Sure. So let me address many of the points that have been raised. So the major barriers to the cities to access innovative sources of funding are three. The nature is three different sources. The first one is the fragmentation of projects. Certain cities have mega projects. Most of the cities and most of the adaptation, particularly projects, are fragmented. And so one is a fragmentation of projects. And that one, a solution for that is to create platform to create portfolio opportunities, because that as well helps investors diversify their risk. Investors look for diversifying their risk. So having a borrower like such a city, and within that having a portfolio of different projects in different sectors with different tenors, addresses one of their issues. The second one is the incomprehension between project sponsors, we cities, and investors. They don't speak the same language. We try to tackle that with the regional climate platforms that we mentioned before, helping structuring, putting projects in a language that is understandable to investors, which means doing an environmental impact assessment, a social impact assessment, a model with financial flows, etc., etc., etc. And that is one of the biggest issues that cities have, is accessing professional and technical assistance to put projects in a way that is understandable to financial investors. And the third one is the perceived increased risk, which I mentioned before. Investors typically think that cities should command a premium, and I heard many of you saying, oh, but it's very expensive. It's because the perceived risk from an investor perspective is that a city is more risky than the national government. And this was probably true for a number of decades, is probably becoming less true these days, particularly as if this financing are actually linked to concrete economic projects or projects that have economic impact. So that is changing, is changing slowly, because the financial industry is typically a very cautious industry. Banks are cautious players. They manage risks. They manage the money of people who give them money, and therefore, by nature, are very cautious in their approach. But this is changing. Coming to your more specific points that have been said here, it would be great if we could finance negative emissions. Unfortunately, there's no carbon price that will give you a value on those negative emissions, not a carbon price that is worldwide recognized by everybody. We have islands, we have certain carbon markets here and there, and they are, if you want, but they are close to the main investors. They are, they are open, the ETS system, the emissions trading system in Europe is the biggest carbon credit in the market, in the world, actually. And the issues that we have, people having access to it and using that for things like you said, the financing negative emission means putting a price on that negative emissions. And as we know, most of the projects, we don't look at what is the cost of externalities today. And then we are unable to put a price, a real price, the cost of those emissions. Think about the way we are paying for our energy, because we have the direct bills that pays part of the energy. But that energy, if it's not decarbonized, you pay through insurance premium, because your insurance premium is going up because of climate change. You pay through lost property. Those are social costs which are not included in your energy bill, but they are linked to the energy system. So putting a price versus the cost is the very difficult aspect that we have today. I think before going in very complex issues subject to a lot of subjectivity today in terms of negative emissions and putting price, there are other less high-hanging fruits, I would say, from the level of finance. And really, I mean, I showed some innovative instruments because they are helpful, but addressing the three issues that I mentioned before will help cities a long way in finding traditional amounts of money which are accessing financing pools to which they don't have access today. And that, I would say, should be the first step. Thank you.
Thank you very much again, Mr. Liguti, for your remarks and your assessment of the interventions, most especially the question of Mannheim, the mayor of Mannheim. Now we would like to call on the representative from Ramallah to take the floor for your intervention.
Thank you very much. Well, I wanted to share something. I fully first understand the motive from the private sector and the local government. And if we look at resilient cities and sustainable cities, we in Ramallah noticed that we are after impact, and the private sector is after, of course, profit-making and maximizing shareholders' funds, etc. And we present ourselves as reliable partners. We decided to undergo an investment in energy with the private sector, whereby the municipality provides the land, which we have a huge stock of, and it's just sitting there doing nothing until we decide to use it, whereby the private sector managed to plant this land with solar cells and generate funds. And of course, this worked for us on the energy resilience and energy independence, because we buy all our energy from the State of Israel, and therefore it's better for us to have our own sources. So it's like a mutual interest whereby the impact is our drive, and we gave room for a longer term investor whereby they can secure a decent ROE without worrying about this long journey of investment. And the list is long, whereby we used our properties through PPP transactions. Thank you.
Thank you. We have two more two more requests on the list, so I will encourage you if there is anyone who wants to speak more from maybe other cities or academia or NGOs. Yes, we will. So the next speaker will be Mr. Eckert from Heidelberg. The floor is yours.
When we talk about sustainability development in cities, we mostly not recognized what we can achieve when we itself are a little bit more dealing like a company or an investor. That's what we have done. So we owned so much land that we become the biggest landowner of the city. Then we started the development, and then it was easy because we sold the land and said anybody who wants to come has to build climate neutral buildings, for example. That's not a national standard, that's a Heidelberg standard. And after 3 years, and the investors just pay 3%, 4% higher prices for these buildings, after 3 years, they could sold the flats for the double price. So nobody should say that economic growth with sustainable movement is not rentable. It's just a question of being really effective. And the most effective way was never ever start a development if you are not a landowner, because then you lose everything. Use private investment, absolutely, but not as a landlord. So if the development in Ramallah, for example, is now coming up, yeah, I think the most relevant point is this. And the second point is investors and private money is always coming if you guarantee that in 1 year they can build. We have a planning process. Normally, it's about 4 to 5 to 6 years before you can start building. This is the shock event for any investor, and then they leave the city. So you have to prepare the ground. And if you do so, you find enough investors. Also for retrofitting, of course, it's the biggest job machine we create. We account that in our region, if you hire the number of retrofitting from 1.5 to 3%, we could create more than 4,500 local employment structures. That means this is the biggest employment program. Also, it's an environmental program. But if you combine this, then you get a much higher acceptance also from the city council and all your partners to get them on board and move in this direction. So economic questions means it helps a sustainable movement if you deal clever. But you try to behave a little bit more like a big employer. This is a totally different thinking. We are not convinced to do so because you have to take over some risk, because if you own the land and the development is not taking part, you're getting bankrupt by yourself. This should be stupid, but if you do this in the right way, then you can really achieve a very high number. And so when you concentrate on this whole development, you can achieve a lot. And if you then run, for example, long-distance heating networks where you need a bunch of money, my city, 1 billion, just for heating expansion. There we need something like a state bank who gives us the credibility, only the credibility, we don't need money, the credibility that we can pay the loans back. I think if the UN is supporting this a little bit more from the national side, it's very easy to get the money then. I think this is the missing link where we're talking now in Germany and on the European scale, where we close the link for the financial instruments, also for those states who are not on the agenda of being subsidized also by the UN programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eckert, for presenting what are your climate finance mechanisms in Heidelberg. We would like to call on now the representative from Sebikotane. At the back.
So thank you very much. My name is Alioune Pouy. My name is Alioune Pouy. I am the mayor of Sébikotane, a city located in Dakar, the capital of Senegal, in West Africa. I will do my speech on English, even if Senegal is a French-speaking country. It is an honor for me to speak at this important mayor forum, both personally and on behalf of the Senegalese delegation of mayors coming from Africa. While the effects of climate change are particularly seen in Africa through phenomena such as sea level rising, floods, and land aridity, the access to green finance or climate finance remains a major problem for African cities. We believe that financing mechanisms must be simplified and the capacity building program must be created for African cities to help them to better develop their project in accordance with the donors and bank requirements. To close my speech on climate change issue, I want to give you an example of project that my city is implementing to address the climate change issue. It is an urban park, and we are looking for finance and support to implement this project. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. The next intervention will be from Niagus. Is correct pronunciation, I hope. So the floor is yours.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to take the floor in this very important panel. The model I wanted to share with you is one that combines the involvement of mayors and the involvement of the solidarity social economy, because as we've seen, when you have economic policy, we've got an awful lot of figures arising from it, but not necessarily concerning the impacts. So what we've done in Niagis is we've set up a local social enterprise. And this allows us, through initiatives, either in the cultural sphere or in other areas, all projects relating to climate change, for example, to set up laboratories to allow young people to be able to be trained to begin their work. And obviously bearing in mind that all young people aren't entrepreneurs, but those who have the vocation, the calling, and are called to it, having had the capacity building and all of the necessary input, can request funding and become entrepreneurs. And this allows us, working through our local cooperative, to strengthen economic inputs and have subsidies that allow us to inject that back into local core services. Why do we do that? Well, we need to develop synergies working through public policies at state level, be that the National Culture Employment Agency or all of those working in spheres around the environment, for example, indeed across all of the sectors. And this requires, but all of which rather require us to bolster activity at the collective level and garner support and input from the entire population. This is how we can have greater impact and allow the population to have decent work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the lady from Niaguis. Now we would like to call on the floor, to take the floor, the representative from Ngongom. I don't know if I said it right.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I'd actually asked for the floor for the previous panel, but since you've given me the floor, perhaps I could take the opportunity. I think the key elements have been touched on already by the presenter, but another key problem is fragmentation of projects. It's not us that are doing that. It's the environment that has that impact. We have small communes, municipalities, but we're all suffering the impact of climate change. We have projects at that commune level, the local council level, but it's very hard to get the bidders to provide the funding. The criteria to get funding are very high bars. The preconditions are very, very difficult. We have projects, for example, in the sphere of water. We want to provide solar panels in order to pump water up from the water tables. And our idea would be to ensure that we roll that out across all of the wells, across the commune. The public buildings also have solar panels. And this is the kind of project that combats climate change. But to get the funding, it's very challenging. And what we've lobbied for is for all of the communes, because basically the country just comprises all of these communes when you think about it. And so that's how we're going to build change. It affects everybody. So what we want to lobby for is to look at how we can really facilitate that change, that paradigm shift, to get access to funding at the local level. That's what we want to see from the UN and all the organisations working in climate change, to look at that local level. If you look at it globally, it's going to be very hard to meet the objectives. It needs to be local. Thank you.
We have the last request, and the floor will go to Global Cities Hub, and after that also we have a request for reply. It's according to UN rules, reply to intervention of Nakhchivan. So first, Global Cities Hub, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. My name is András Szörényi from the Global Cities Hub, and I am very pleased to listen to this discussion, because we believe, as you might know, that the dialogue between the local and the global level is very, very important, and climate financing is not an exception. I would say it should be the rule, and to follow this rule, already in the past, we made efforts to put this issue as high on the international agenda as possible, and put it in the framework of the UN reform process, where there's a full discussion about the reform of the international financial institutions and the financing of climate impact projects and the financing of sustainable development at the national, at the local level. Previously, together with the Global Parliament of Mayors, the Global Cities Hub joined efforts to draft the Mayor's Declaration on Sustainable Local Financing for Development, and we were very keen to listen to the mayors who expressed their views, how they see the needs and requirements at the local level, as they did it now in the room. And we presented this declaration at different instances, like the Financing for Development Conference in Sevilla, and we will use it also in the future at different instances. And I wanted to congratulate the panel and the participants of this discussion, because we believe that this exchange also contributed to pass the message to the national governments how the reform should go on, to make sure that the impact of the international financial institutions is maximum to help local and regional governments for financing climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. András, or Andrew in English, from the Global Cities Hub. Now we would like to call on the delegation of Armenia for your reply to the question of Nakhchivan.
No, just for the right to reply.
For the reply. delegation of Armenia.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, distinguished participants of the Forum of Mayors. We took the floor to exercise our right of reply and express our concern at the use of the reference to the so-called Zangezur corridor by the representative of Nakhchivan. We invite the attention of the distinguished participants of the Forum of Mayors to the fact that the so-called Zangezur corridor and similar narratives do not stem from the agreements reached between Armenia and Azerbaijan in various formats, and lately on 8th of August in Washington. They have negative impact and are perceived as a territorial claim against a sovereign country. In the Washington Declaration that was agreed by the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan on 8th of August in Washington, the leaders of two countries reaffirmed the importance of opening communications between the two countries for intrastate, bilateral and international transportation for the promotion of peace, stability and prosperity in the region and its neighborhood on the basis of respect for the sovereignty, territorial integrity and jurisdiction of the states. That's almost a verbatim repetition of the language of the declaration that was agreed upon on 8th of August. These efforts include unimpeded connectivity between the main parts of the Republic of Azerbaijan and Nakhchivan to the territory of the Republic of Armenia, with reciprocal benefits for the international and intrastate connectivity for Armenia as well. The route that would pass through the territory of Armenia is called TRIP. We think that the use of legitimate narratives will be essential for the prompt implementation of the agreements reached between the two countries at the highest level. Any other interpretation of the communication routes does not stem from the agreements between the two countries and would be counterproductive. I thank you.
Thank you. So we have another request from Azerbaijan, but after that, we'll close the list, but according to rule, we have to give the floor also to Azerbaijan. But please have in mind that this event is about the cities and the local level, and please, so the floor is yours, delegation of Azerbaijan.
Thank you very much. We're compelled to take the floor in response to the statement delivered by the Permanent Mission of Armenia. Karabakh and Eastern Zangezur regions are Azerbaijan's international recognized areas. Historically, this area has been an integral part of Azerbaijan's sovereign territory. Furthermore, the Eastern Zangezur economic region is one of the 14 economic regions of Azerbaijan. This region encompasses the districts of Kelbejar, Lachin, Gubadli, Zengilan, and Jabrail, covering an area of approximately 7,448 square kilometers. And the creation of this economic region aims to promote economic development and infrastructure enhancement in these territories. And it's important to know that the Republic of Armenia has officially recognized the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. This recognition is a significant step toward fostering peaceful relations and mutual respect between our two nations. And by acknowledging each other's international recognized borders, both countries can work collaboratively toward regional stability and cooperation. In light of this mutual recognition, I encourage the representative of Armenia to engage constructively on the promotion of peace, and particularly in light of the recent agreements reached recently in Washington between our two countries. Thank you very much.
Okay. Everybody have spoken already, so we would like to thank all of those who did their interventions and presentations for your insights and remarks. And to close this segment, I would like to invite Mr. Kurt Garrigan from the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, UNESCAP, to provide the concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Excellencies, distinguished guests. First, let me thank UNECE and the Global Cities Hub for facilitating the engagement of all the regional commissions and the mayors from our respective regions in the Forum of Mayors. I would also like to thank the panelists for their interventions and all of the speakers this afternoon. This session once again affirmed the need to engage cities, not to just enable them, but to empower them to take local climate action and to overcome the obstacles of access to finance. We hear frequently the significant interest from, and the necessity for cities to take climate action, both for their local mitigation and adaptation needs and to contribute to national climate strategies. Let me share a little bit of information from the Asia-Pacific region and how ESCAP is supporting cities and countries to enact local climate policies and investments. Asia and the Pacific currently accounts for roughly 55% of global GHG emissions, with, as is the case elsewhere, 70% of those emissions emerging from urban areas. Amidst growing urbanization trends across the 53 Asia-Pacific member states, we note that fewer than 15 countries have strong urban content in their nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, with specific urban sections and/or which urban areas are identified as priority sectors. Slightly more than 15 mention urban content, and again, slightly more than 15 have no mention at all of urban content in their nationally determined contributions. We know that national climate strategies are not achieved by national governments alone, whether on climate or implementation of the SDGs and the 2030 Agenda. We know as well that the climate risks disproportionately impact urban areas and populations, but in all regions, we see a lack of coherence among national and subnational authorities and varying levels of multi-level governance, which is essential for climate action. And of course, that will inhibit the flow of finance and investments. ESCAP is working with national and subnational authorities through a project entitled Urban Act, Integrated Urban Climate Action for Low Carbon and Resilient Cities. And some of the recommendations in that project are applicable across all regions. First, align NDCs and national adaptation plans with possible city-level actions. Second, integrate multiple sectors in multi-level governance for climate action. Third, strengthen enabling framework conditions for financing. Fourth, support strategic and climate-sensitive urban planning. Fifth, leverage local solutions and local stakeholders. And sixth, promote regional cooperation initiatives to translate nationally determined contributions to city level. All cities in ours and other regions require a strong enabling environment and vertical integration to accelerate local climate action. That includes, where appropriate, access to climate financing. Emerging and developing countries in Asia require at least $1.1 trillion annually to meet climate mitigation and adaptation needs. Actual levels of investment fall short by approximately $800 billion annually. The reliance on intergovernmental transfers clearly are not sufficient, especially in emerging cities in Asia, where rapid growth far outpaces available resources to manage that growth and to develop climate-sensitive infrastructure. But the needed fiscal reforms and associated climate mechanisms must be contextualized for cities, given their disparate institutional and financial capacities. You heard in the opening presentation the complexities of structuring climate financing in cities. Cities cannot go from limited own source revenue and mostly reliance on intergovernmental transfers to accessing international finance or capital markets. Basic fiscal reforms are fundamental to establish the certainty for investment, regardless of how well designed any individual project may be. A feasible project on paper is less so if the city is not collecting or optimizing its local revenue, has leakage in its utilities, does not consider land value capture to leverage its own growth, or does not demonstrate stable governance and efficient management of its resources. So incremental steps are necessary to enhance local capacities, optimize local revenues, build creditworthiness, determine shared risks and provision of guarantees, and to develop blended or pooled financing appropriate to the local contexts and capacities. But these steps also take time, and they take local and national entities to come together in a dialogue. Therefore, co-designing climate strategies with cities as central partners is essential, and co-developing climate financing mechanisms accordingly is the only approach that will ensure that the potential of cities is realized in cities of all sizes and populations and capacities. Local planning practices must incorporate climate-sensitive design and tools such as climate budgeting and adoption of local resilience strategies and plans to future-proof investments. This is a key component of de-risking mentioned earlier. One last point on data. SDG reporting, especially SDG 11 data, lacks local-level information in all of the national reports that we have looked at. ESCAP's annual SDG progress report identified only a few indicators where sufficient data to measure progress on SDG 11 was available, and the data varies year by year. This again illustrates the disconnect between what happens on the ground in all of our cities and the national entities responsible for both climate and 2030 agenda reporting. Institutionalized data collection and sharing can be continuously enhanced and will support enabling climate finance. We should not underestimate the value of peer-to-peer exchanges and platforms such as the Forum of Mayors as a means to exchange successes, common challenges, and to facilitate technical support and cooperation among cities, UN entities, civil society, and other organizations. Again, thank you to UNECE, all of the organizers for their support, and Mr. or Madam Chair, back to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Garrigan, for your insightful concluding remarks. I hope we did a small step in empowering all participants to do actions, because it requires, beside financing national measures, mostly courage. So as we are coming nearly to the end of first day's plenary sessions, I want to thank each and every one of you for your active engagement and informative contributions. The topics on our agenda today have been important and complex, and the richness of your discussions since this morning clearly reflects the depth of expertise and commitment in this room. Your participation has made this a meaningful and productive gathering. Before we close the first day of the meeting, I wish to invite, I hope he is here, okay, Mr. Thierry Apotello, I hope I pronounced correct, President of the Council of State of the Canton of Geneva, to provide his remarks and impressions on the Forum of Mayors as host city of the United Nations Geneva office. Please, Mr. Apotello, the floor is yours.
Quel courage, mesdames et messieurs. What courage, ladies and gentlemen, you have. What courage to give me the privilege of speaking another few minutes after such a dense, packed day. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished mayors, allow me to begin by thanking you for your welcome and for letting me feel like I've gone back in time. I was a mayor here in Vernier in Geneva 15 years ago, so it is a great pleasure for me to now address you. We are living in a globalized and interdependent world. Everything that happens in the south has an impact on the north, and everything that occurs in the east has repercussions in the west. The stakes that we're up against know no borders. The financial bubble that can explode within one country can jeopardize the prosperity of the entire planet. When a new virus emerges, it becomes a threat to all of humankind. Climate change, poor crops, drought continue to drive people into poverty, into destitution, and on journeys in seek of a better future. In the face of all these threats, the only possible solution is through cooperation, and that is what lies at the heart of the messages of sustainable development. It is why every country has to make significant efforts. But globalization is also a form of urbanization that has become global. Yesterday, the world was mainly rural. Today, it is mainly urban. And the transformation that has occurred swiftly and on a large scale. It triggered major social, economic, and environmental transformations. And it also strengthened the power of cities. At a time when the power of states seems to be compromised by power politics and heightened competitiveness and competition. Globalization and technological revolutions also have very direct impacts on cities and on their balance. Time seems to be speeding up. Trade is also speeding up, and the feeling of urgency is more acute. To speak of a globalized world should not always make us think about the whole planet, though, because at the global level, none of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals seem to be attainable between now and 2030, because at the global level, bringing about consensus is hard at times. And so it is at the local level that we can really build on that sense of urgency and that awareness and that desire to lead by example. Some regional governments have been very successful through robust local policies that have been carried out in an inclusive way with partners. Building on these successes and replicating them step by step is, in my mind, the key for building a better world and ensuring the happiness of future generations. And this is something that can only be done through you, through this platform that is the Forum of Mayors. Distinguished elected representatives, healthcare, sustainable development, the environment, digitalization, or even human rights, inequalities, social inequalities. These challenges are not the prerogative of the leaders of our world. No, it is your voice that we wish to hear on these issues, because you are the ones who are closest to the situation on the ground. You understand the concerns of the people. In Europe and around the world, urban challenges are huge, and there are many of them. They relate to housing, to the quality of life, and inequalities. Economic and demographic growth do not always rhyme with better living standards. This should stir our conscience and make us ask questions about our references. Geneva, a global city, aspires to be a hub for thinking about these issues. Geneva aspires to being an international metropolis. It is a cross-border place. There are many cantons and 45 communes. Geneva is often portrayed as being wealthy, but Geneva is also home to inequalities. In other words, it is a unique place that concentrates global dynamics and which is also seeing growing precariousness and disruptions in terms of its social mixity. Public authorities have a major, no, an essential responsibility for preserving that social link and reducing inequalities and consolidating social mixity. That is why in Geneva we have established our cohesion policy in the urban environment in a structured fashion, and communes have to take part in it, as do our residents. And so Your solutions and your ideas must be heard and taken into account by states, states who are all too often stuck in a gridlock when they try to move ahead together. This forum is unique because it shows that, on the contrary, it is possible to give fresh impetus to multilateralism. It is unique because it allows you to speak here in your own capacity as mayors within the United Nations. And that is why the Canton of Geneva, directly and through the Global Cities Hub, has supported this forum from the very outset. We are proud. We are delighted to see mayors from around the world come to Geneva in order to exchange views about roles that are both international and decisive at the local level on the ground. Your forum is a unique place for galvanizing action around the Sustainable Development Goals, and it is also unique for thinking ahead, thinking beyond 2030. Because we know that 2030 is around the corner. And what are our goals to be after 2030? What future do we aspire to? And what efforts are we ready to make? Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished mayors, the Canton of Geneva remains committed to providing an inclusive, multilateral environment for shared dialogue and for finding solutions to global challenges. This unique proximity between global institutions and grassroots stakeholders make Geneva a laboratory for international cooperation and a place which combines strategic vision with specific hands-on experience. Responses to current challenges will only be found through partnership between different levels of government. This forum embodies a changing international Geneva at a time when international cooperation and multilateralism are under pressure. So, as you'll have understood, it is an honor for me to be taking part in this UN forum as the President of the Government of the Republic and Canton of Geneva. I would like to commend the member states and the community for the organization of this forum, all of the regional commissions of the United Nations, and of course the Global Cities Hub, because, well, everything that happens here has an impact elsewhere, and everything that happens elsewhere has an impact here. Then we need to listen to cities from the other side of the world. Thank you, and I wish you all a successful forum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Apostolus, for your impressions and remarks. And we appreciate your office hosting the Forum of Mayors. And it's a great pleasure to be in Geneva. I would like to hand over now to Ms. Paula, UNEC Secretary, to take the floor for some information about this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, this is actually not about the reception that will start very shortly, but it's about something else. Well, first of all, it's the first time I have the floor, so let me welcome you all and tell you how myself and the staff of my division are really proud to have you all here. We work very hard. We are a very small team, and I have to say, seeing you all in the room makes us very happy, and we feel that the weight on our shoulder is lifted, and you have an opportunity to interact. So this is really wonderful. Now, thank you. There is a forum of mayors in this room, but then I went outside and there's another forum of mayors in the corridor with a lot of people talking and interacting, which is really the meaning of the Forum of Mayors. We want you to interact. And today we had a very good event on women mayors, and at the initiative of our chair, the mayor of Glasgow, there was this idea of having a declaration from women mayors on what happened in that room, because it was a very, I can say it, emotional, right? and I'm not afraid of saying this, it was a very emotional meeting with a lot of things said and a lot of reality shown from the experience of mayors. So the idea is to put together a declaration for the signature of women mayors, but there is a specific procedure to have a declaration approved by the Forum of Mayors. As you know, for instance, the recommendations we have here have been negotiated for months. So this declaration will be outside of the Forum of Mayors, will be something common from the women mayors and women deputy mayors that are here. And we will set a table for those who want to join this declaration outside of the meeting room tomorrow morning. For those who want to sign, they will be able to sign it. So we respect procedure, but at the same time, we also honor this what can I say, feeling and desire that women mayors had today to have their voice heard. So the Secretariat, together with the chair, prepared a text. We will circulate it. We will not have time to negotiate this, so we hope that women mayors, that you are okay with this text. It's a sort of summary of what was said today. I don't think we missed anything. Maybe you're not very happy with one word or another, but it's really the meaning of the overall declaration. That is what we were trying to say. So we will have some copies at the reception for those of you that want to see it, but in any case, tomorrow morning there will be a table for you. So this is, I think it's an excellent initiative. It happened also in the past. We had another declaration done outside, but this is what I'm saying, that there is one official Forum of Mayors and many other unofficial ones around it, and this is the beauty also of this meeting. Last but not least, of course, there is a reception. Let me thank Susan and Glasgow for hosting it. I leave it to Thea to give us some instructions, but I mean, it's very difficult to circulate on UN ground, also for those who have been here for many, many years. So follow us in case, because we show a map, but the map is sometimes more confusing than the reality. So you can always follow me, Thea, and the staff, and follow the crowd, and you'll get to the right place. Over to you, Thea.
Thank you, Paola. So, but don't be afraid, it's not as far as you had to walk to earlier today to reach the H building. So for the reception, you should continue uphill, but it's only like 1/3 of a distance. We will be guiding you. It's towards, you need to enter the building via the door 11, but no worries, we will be walking ahead of you. The reception will start at 6:15, and it will end, because we have strict rules here in the UN that we need to also close the premises, so it will be until 7:45. But do note that you will not be able to access or go out of the UN compound, the door that is closest here to Tempus, the Peace Gate, which is nearest the flag, will close at 7:30. After 7:30, you will need to go out from the Visitors Gate, which is above, opposite the Red Cross. So those are just the announcements for tonight, but we will lead you to the reception. And tomorrow morning, just one announcement, that there will be again a very interesting side event taking place that hopefully you will not miss. And that's the Cooling and Building for Urban Resilience, Local Solutions, Global Impact. And this is an event organized by UNEP, Global Cities Hub, with the breakfast kindly offered by the city of Bursa, so please do not miss that. That will be in the room H200, where you were for the lunchtime at the auditorium in the ground floor. So thank you so much for the organizers of this event for tomorrow. Thank you.
So thank you, Paola and team, for you have done this great job once again. So I can conclude the first day of our meeting is now closed, and tomorrow you are invited for the second day of the forum.